Jack Winters was just trying to make ends meet as a single dad in Vermont when one snowy night changed everything. Driving home through a brutal snowstorm, he spots a young girl stranded on the frozen road. Without hesitation, he risks his own life to save her, not knowing she comes from one of the wealthiest families in New England. The next morning, a private jet lands near his modest home. The girl's family steps out with a gift that could solve all his problems, but it comes with an unexpected price. Sometimes the simplest acts of kindness lead to the most extraordinary twists of fate. What shocking secret could this wealthy family be hiding? And why did they really track down their daughter's rescuer? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The kitchen clock's steady ticking seemed to mock Jack as he stared at the crumpled permission slip in his hands. His daughter Sarah's neat handwriting filled out most of the form, but the space for the parent's signature and the $40 fee remained blank. The class trip to the Burlington Science Museum was next week, and he'd been putting off this moment for days. "Dad?" Sarah's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Have you seen my blue sweater? The one Grandma made?" Jack quickly tucked the permission slip under a stack of overdue bills. "Check the laundry basket, honey. I did a load last night." Sarah's footsteps thundered down the stairs, her long brown hair still damp from the shower. At 12, she was already showing hints of her mother's grace, the same determined chin and bright eyes that had first caught Jack's attention 15 years ago. "Found it!" She emerged from the laundry room, pulling on the hand-knit sweater. "You remembered to use the special soap?" "Of course." Jack managed to smile, though his mind was still on the numbers he'd been crunching all morning. 3 carpentry jobs had fallen through this month, victims of the economic downturn hitting their small Vermont town. The mortgage payment was already 2 weeks late, and winter heating bills were starting to pile up. Sarah paused at the kitchen counter, her eyes lingering on the edge of the permission slip visible beneath the bills. She quickly looked away, busying herself with making toast. That was Sarah, always trying to make things easier for him, shouldering burdens no 12-year-old should have to carry. "Mrs. Peterson asked if you could look at her cabinet hinges," Sarah mentioned casually, spreading peanut butter on her toast. "She said they're getting loose again." Jack nodded, mentally adding it to his growing list of small repair jobs. "I'll stop by after work today. Every little bit helps, right?" "Right." Sarah's smile was bright, but he caught the worry in her eyes. "And Dad, Jenny said her mom needs help with their deck railings, too. I told her you're the best carpenter in Vermont. My own personal marketing department." Jack ruffled her hair, heart swelling with pride and ache. She was too young to be worrying about bringing in work for him. The ancient truck's dashboard clock read 7:15 when they pulled up to the middle school. Sarah gathered her backpack, then hesitated. "Dad, about the Science Museum trip." She fidgeted with her sweater sleeve. "Mrs. Roberts said they need chaperones. Maybe you could volunteer instead of, The lump in Jack's throat grew. Even now, she was trying to find solutions to make things work, just like her mother had always done. "I'll talk to Mrs. Roberts," he promised, though they both knew his work schedule wouldn't allow it. "Have a good day, sweetheart." He watched her join the stream of students heading into the building, her blue sweater bright against the grey November morning. The permission slip seemed to burn in his pocket, a physical reminder of all the ways he was failing her. The drive to his workshop took him past Main Street's quiet storefronts, Thompson's Hardware, where he bought supplies on credit these days, the diner where he and Sarah had Sunday breakfast when they could afford it, the bank where his mortgage payment was overdue. Each familiar sight carried its own weight of worry. His workshop at least felt like home. The scent of sawdust and varnish, the tools arranged precisely on their hooks, some inherited from his father, others collected over 20 years of craftsmanship. Here he could transform raw wood into beautiful, useful things. If only he could transform their circumstances as easily. He pulled out his phone, checking the weather forecast again. Another storm system moving in. Heavy snow expected by nightfall. More cancelled jobs, more tight margins. But he couldn't let Sarah see his fear. She'd lost her mother 3 years ago. He refused to let her lose her childhood to poverty as well. The permission slip lay on his workbench as he began his day, its edges curling like autumn leaves. $40, such a small amount to mean so much. He picked up his father's old chisel, its handle worn smooth by generations of careful hands, and began to work. There would be a way, there had to be. The lunch hour found Jack alone in his workshop, sandwich forgotten, as he stared at the photograph he kept in his wallet. The edges were worn soft from handling, but the image remained clear. Himself, Rachel, and baby Sarah on the front porch of their newly purchased home. Rachel's smile blazed with pride and possibility, her hand resting on the porch railing he'd carved himself as a wedding present. "Looking good, Jack." Tom Henderson's voice startled him from his reverie. The hardware store owner stood in the doorway, snow dusting his shoulders. "Got that storm coming in faster than expected." Jack tucked the photo away. "Parts come in. And for the Miller job. That's why I'm here." Tom set a box on the workbench, his expression heavy. "Listen, Jack, about your account. I'll have something for you next week." Jack kept his voice steady, professional. "Got a few jobs lined up." Tom nodded, but his eyes drifted to the photograph Jack had just hidden. He'd known them both since high school, had been there through it all. The whirlwind romance, the small-town wedding, the long hospital nights at the end. "Rachel always said you were the best craftsman in 3 counties, Tom said quietly. She was right about that. Among other things, the memory hit Jack like a physical blow. Rachel in her hospital bed, still making plans, still believing in him. "Promise me you'll finish the house," she'd whispered. "All those little details we talked about. Promise me you'll make it beautiful for Sarah." He'd promised, but 3 years later, he was struggling just to keep the house at all. "Thanks for the delivery, Tom." Jack turned to his workbench, unable to meet his friend's knowing gaze. "I should get back to it. Storm's supposed to hit hard tonight. They're saying possible power outages." Tom lingered in the doorway. "You and Sarah got everything you need?" "We're fine." The lie came automatically now, practiced as his woodworking techniques. "Generators full, pantries stocked." Tom's silence spoke volumes. Finally, he sighed. "Rachel would kick both our asses if she knew I was letting you be this stubborn. Come by the store before you head home. I've got some emergency supplies that need testing. 2-person job, if you catch my meaning." Jack's throat tightened. "Tom, just looking out for my investment. Can't have my best customer freezing to death, can I?" Tom's boots crunched in the new snow as he left, leaving Jack alone with his memories and his pride. The afternoon light faded early, hurried along by the approaching storm. Jack worked steadily, losing himself in the familiar rhythms of his craft. Rachel had loved watching him work, sitting in the corner of his workshop with her sketchbook, designing the details they'd add to their house someday. The carved medallions for the stair risers, the built-in bookcase for Sarah's room, the garden arch where morning glories would climb. He'd completed exactly none of them. The wind picked up outside, rattling the workshop windows. Jack checked. His phone, 3 texts from Sarah. "Storm's getting worse. School might close early. Mrs. Roberts says all after-school activities are cancelled. Dad, you'll be careful driving home, right?" His daughter, always worrying about him when it should be the other way around. He texted back quickly, "Of course, sweetheart, you too." The photograph seemed to burn in his wallet as he began cleaning up for the day. Rachel would be so proud of the young woman Sarah was becoming, and so disappointed in his failure to provide the life they'd planned together. "I'm trying, Rach," he whispered to the empty workshop. "God knows I'm trying." The first serious flurries were starting as he loaded his tools into the truck. Against his better judgment, he found himself turning toward Thompson's Hardware. Tom's offer of help stuck in his throat, but Rachel's voice echoed in his memory. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept help when it's offered with love." The truck's heater wheezed against the growing cold. Above him, heavy clouds promised a long night ahead. But first, he had a daughter to pick up, a store to visit, and promises to keep, both to the living and the dead. The hastily sketched map from Tom lay on Jack's passenger seat, marking the safest route home from Sarah's school. The storm had intensified faster than anyone expected, turning the familiar Vermont roads into a treacherous maze of white. His truck's wipers fought a losing battle against the heavy snow, and the wind howled like a living thing. "Just a few more miles," he muttered, squinting through the windshield. Sarah sat beside him, unusually quiet, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The school had closed early, but not early enough. Half the town was caught in this mess now. "Dad?" Sarah's voice was barely audible over the storm. "What's that?" Jack leaned forward, straining to see through the whiteout conditions. Something darker than snow moved at the edge of his headlight's reach. His first thought was deer. They were common on this stretch of road, but the shape was wrong. "Oh my God," Sarah gasped. "Dad, it's a person!" His daughter's words galvanized him into action. Jack pulled the truck as far to the side as he dared, emergency flashes cutting through the swirling snow. "Stay here," he ordered, already reaching for his heavy coat. The bitter cold hit him like a physical blow as he stepped out. The wind drove needles of ice into any exposed skin, and the snow was already past his ankles. He moved carefully toward the shape, one hand shielding his eyes. It was a child. A girl, maybe 10 or 11, huddled against the wind in a coat that looked more fashionable than functional. She startled at his approach, fear visible even through the curtain of snow between them. "It's okay," Jack called out, trying to project calm through the storm's fury. "I'm here to help. Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head, then nodded, then shook it again. Up close, he could see she was shivering violently. No hat, no proper boots. She was dressed for a quick car ride, not a winter storm. "I'm Jack," he said, moving slowly closer. "That's my daughter Sarah in the truck. We live near here. Can you tell me your name?" Emily," she managed through chattering teeth. "Our car. Mom tried to turn around. I got out to help guide her, and—" She gestured helplessly at the white void around them. Jack's heart clenched. Somewhere out here was a parent frantically searching for their child. But in these conditions, finding a specific section of road would be nearly impossible. "Let's get you warm first," he said, already shrugging out of his coat. "Then we'll figure out the rest." Emily tried to protest as he wrapped the coat around her, but her body betrayed her by leaning into its warmth. Jack scooped her up. She weighed almost nothing, and fought his way back to the truck through snow that was already drifting, knee-deep. Sarah had the back door open before they reached it. "I turned the heat up all the way," she said, practical in crisis, just like her mother. She helped Jack settle Emily into the back seat, then climbed in beside her, already pulling an old blanket from under the seat. Jack's hands shook as he pulled Tom's map from the passenger seat. The roads that had been relatively clear an hour ago were now marked with hastily scrawled X's, closed by the storm. Their usual route home was blocked, but he knew these back roads better than most. "Emily," he said gently, turning to face the girls. "Did your mom have a phone? Do you remember her number?" Emily nodded, then burst into tears. "It's not working out here. We were trying to get back to the main road." "It's okay," Sarah soothed, wrapping both the blanket and an arm around the younger girl. "Dad knows every road in Vermont. He'll figure it out." Jack met his daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror, saw her absolute faith in him. He thought of Rachel, of promises kept and broken. The storm raged harder, but his path was clear. "First, we get somewhere safe," he said, firmly. "The house is closest. Once we're there, we'll contact the authorities, let them know where you are. Your mom will be worried sick, but she'll want you warm and safe." Emily's shivers were subsiding under the combined assault of heater, blanket, and Sarah's protective presence. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was so scared." "Not anymore," Sarah assured her. "Dad's got this." Jack turned back to the road, hand tightening on the wheel. The truck's headlights carved a narrow path through the white chaos, and Tom's map showed the way. But it was his daughter's confidence that steeled his resolve. Sometimes the hardest paths were also the clearest. "Hold on, everyone," he said, carefully putting the truck in gear. "We're going home." The familiar crunch of gravel under tires had never sounded so welcome. Jack's hands were stiff from gripping the wheel by the time he pulled up to the house, the truck's headlights illuminating swirling curtains of snow. The short drive had taken nearly an hour, each mile a battle against the strengthening storm. "Home, sweet home," Sarah announced, helping Emily untangle herself from the blanket. In the truck's dome light, Jack noticed for the first time the delicate silk scarf around Emily's neck, its pale blue fabric embroidered with what looked like real silver thread. The designer label caught his eye, the kind of thing he'd seen in store windows but never imagined buying. The wind nearly tore the truck's door from his hands as they made their dash for the house. Emily stumbled in the deep snow, her leather boots clearly meant for fashion rather than Vermont winters. Without hesitation, Jack scooped her up again, following Sarah's bobbing figure to the front porch. Inside, the house was already growing cold. "Power's out," Sarah reported, flicking a useless light switch. "I'll get the emergency lantern." "Generator first," Jack corrected, settling Emily on the couch. "Get those wet things off before you catch cold. Sarah can loan you something dry." Emily's fingers trembled as she unwound the expensive scarf. "My mom gave me this for my birthday," she said softly. "Last week. It's from Paris." Jack carefully draped the soggy scarf over a chair back, noting the way Emily watched it with worried eyes. "We'll make sure it dries properly," he promised. "Sarah, show Emily where to change while I get the generator started." The girls disappeared upstairs, their whispered voices mixing with the storm's howl. Jack fought his way to the garage, grateful now for Tom's insistence on testing the emergency supplies. 10 minutes later, the generator hummed to life, bringing blessed heat and light to the first floor. When he returned, he found the girls in the living room, Emily swimming in a pair of Sarah's warmest pajamas. His daughter had clearly been busy. Blankets were piled on the couch, and she was setting up what looked like a makeshift fort using kitchen chairs and spare sheets. "Hot chocolate?" Sarah asked, already heading for the kitchen. "Mum's special. Recipe?" Jack's heart squeezed at the mention of Rachel's famous hot chocolate, dark cocoa, a pinch of cinnamon, and her secret ingredient that he'd never quite managed to replicate. "Good thinking, sweetheart. Emily, are you warm enough?" Emily nodded, her previous fear giving way to shy curiosity as she looked around the living room. Her gaze lingered on the family photos, the hand-carved shelves, the little touches that made their house a home despite its modest size. "Your house is really nice," she said, fingers tracing the woodwork on the nearest shelf. "Did you make this?" "Dad makes everything," Sarah called from the kitchen, pride evident in her voice. "He's the best carpenter in Vermont." Sarah's biased, Jack said with a small smile. "But yes, I did most of the woodwork. It was supposed to be." He trailed off, remembering Rachel's plans, her sketches, her dreams for their home. "It's beautiful," Emily said simply, "like something from a fairy tale." Sarah returned with 3 mugs of steaming hot chocolate, nearly dropping them when a particularly fierce gust rattled the windows. "We should try calling your mum again," she suggested, settling beside Emily in their blanket fort. Emily's face fell. "I tried upstairs, but there's still no signal. She must be so worried." "The landline's dead too," Sarah reported. "But the police know to look for your mom's car, right? And once the storm dies down, we'll get you home," Jack promised. "For now, you're safe and warm, and that's what matters." The girls huddled together under the blankets, sipping their hot chocolate and trading quiet stories. Jack watched them, struck by how naturally they'd bonded. Sarah had always been good at making friends, but this was different. There was a gentleness in the way she looked after Emily, as if she recognized another soul who knew what it meant to be scared and trying not to show it. Outside, the storm raged on. Jack moved to the window, peering into the white darkness. Somewhere out there, a mother was frantically searching for her daughter. He thought of Rachel, of all the nights he'd worried about Sarah, of the fierce, protective love that came with parenthood. The expensive scarf dried on its chair, a splash of delicate elegance in their rustic home. Like Emily herself, it seemed, both out of place and somehow meant to be there, marking the beginning of a change Jack couldn't yet fully grasp. The emergency radio crackled to life in Jack's hands, its red power light a beacon in the storm-darkened room. He adjusted the frequency, searching for the local station through bursts of static. Sarah and Emily remained huddled in their blanket. Empty, hot chocolate mugs scattered around them like driftwood after a tide. Severe weather warning remains in effect, the announcer's voice cut through the interference. All roads north of Burlington closed. Emergency vehicles only. Residents advised to shelter in place. Emily sat up straighter, her borrowed pajamas slipping off one shoulder. Can you try the police frequency? Maybe they found my mum's car. Jack adjusted the dial, remembering the codes from his summers volunteering with the rescue squad. Through the static, dispatchers coordinated search efforts, directing plows and emergency vehicles across the county. Silver Mercedes SUV located on Route 7, driver safe at emergency shelter. Searching for missing juvenile Emily Hamilton, age 10. That's me! Emily's voice cracked with relief. They found my mum! She's okay! Sarah squeezed her friend's hand, but Jack noticed how Emily's eyes widened at the next transmission. And the Hamilton family helicopter grounded at Burlington International. Private search teams coordinating with local authorities. Helicopter? Sarah echoed, looking at Emily with new curiosity. Emily seemed to shrink into the blankets. My dad, he worries a lot, especially since the divorce. The radio continued, its litany of emergency updates. But Jack was watching Emily's face, seeing beyond the expensive scarf and designer boots to the child beneath. Just as scared and unsure as any other 10-year-old separated from her parents. Search teams have your mom's location, he said gently. She's safe and she knows you're missing. That's what matters right now. Could we try calling again? Emily asked, hope warring with exhaustion in her voice. The cell towers might be working now. Sarah was already shaking her head. Power's still out in most places, but look, she pointed to the window, where the snow seemed to be falling less furiously. The storm might be easing up. Jack checked his watch. Nearly 9 o'clock. The girls had demolished the sandwich. Supplies he'd scrounged from the kitchen, but hunger wasn't what worried him. Emily's casual mention of private helicopters and her father's resources painted a picture of a world very different from their own. The radio squawked again. Update on missing juvenile. Emily Hamilton, age 10, last seen wearing light blue Burberry coat and Christian Louboutin boots. Sarah's eyes widened at the designer names. Emily stared at her borrowed flannel pajamas, cheeks flushing. I didn't mean to cause so much trouble, she whispered. Mom just wanted to take the scenic route to Dad's house. She said the back roads would be prettier. Hey, Jack interrupted gently, no one plans on getting caught in a storm. Your mom made the right choice pulling over, and you were smart to stay by the road where someone could find you. Even if that someone drives a really old truck, Sarah added with a grin, breaking the tension. Emily managed a small smile. Best truck ever. The radio continued its updates, but the girls had moved on to sharing stories. Sarah describing her favorite hiking trails, Emily talking about her new school in Boston. Jack listened with half an ear, noting how carefully Emily avoided mentioning anything about her family's wealth, how eagerly she asked Sarah about small-town life. Through the window, he could see the storm beginning to lose its fury. Soon, the search teams would be able to move again. Emily would return to her world of private helicopters and designer clothes, and he and Sarah would return to their life of careful budgeting and making do. But for now, watching the girls laugh together in their makeshift fort, none of that seemed to matter. The radio's glow illuminated their small circle of warmth and safety, while outside, the Vermont winter raged its last against the coming dawn. Dawn broke over Vermont like a watercolor painting, soft pinks and golds washing across the snow-blanketed landscape. Jack stood on his front porch, coffee mug steaming in the bitter morning air, watching his breath form clouds in the stillness. The storm had passed, leaving behind a transformed world, pristine, peaceful, and nearly 3 feet deep in places. The sound reached him first, a steady thrum that seemed out of place in the rural quiet. Then he saw it, a sleek, private helicopter emerging from the morning mist, its black body gleaming against the snow-bright sky. "Dad!" Sarah burst through the front door, Emily close behind. "Is that your family?" Jack asked Emily, who nodded, her face a mixture of relief and something that looked almost like regret. The helicopter circled once before landing in the cleared area beyond Jack's workshop, its rotors sending up clouds of powdered snow. Jack instinctively stepped in front of the girls as the door opened, shielding them from the swirling ice crystals. A woman emerged first, tall, elegant, and somehow immaculate, despite clearly having been up all night. Her designer coat matched Emily's ruined one perfectly. Behind her came a man in what had to be a bespoke suit, his silver hair and commanding presence marking him as someone used to being in charge. "Emily!" The woman's composed facade cracked as she ran toward them, her expensive boots disappearing in the deep snow. "Oh, my baby." "Mom!" Emily rushed forward into her mother's arms. "I'm sorry, I was so scared, and then Mr. Winters found me, and Sarah took care of me." "Catherine," the man said, his voice carrying easily across the space between them, "let the child breathe." He approached more slowly, studying Jack with keen eyes that missed nothing. The worn work boots, the patched jacket, the small house. Behind them, Jack found himself standing straighter, suddenly conscious of every crack in the porch railings he hadn't had time to fix. "James Hamilton," the man said, extending his hand. His grip was firm but not challenging. "We owe you a tremendous debt, Mr. Winters." "Jack," he corrected automatically, "and anyone would have done the same." "No," Catherine Hamilton interrupted, finally releasing Emily enough to turn toward them. "Anyone would have called the authorities and waited for help. You risked your own safety to save our daughter." Her eyes fell on Sarah. "And you took care of her all night." Sarah shrugged, suddenly shy. "That's what friends do." Something flickered across Catherine's face, recognition perhaps, or memory. She studied Sarah more closely, then looked back at Jack. "You seem familiar. Have we met before?" Before Jack could answer, James Hamilton pulled out a business card, offering it with the practiced ease of someone used to making things happen. "We'd like to show our appreciation properly, perhaps over dinner, once the roads are cleared." The card was heavy, cream-colored stock, embossed with gold lettering. Jack took it automatically, noting the Boston address and the string of impressive titles under James's name. "You've done more than enough," Catherine added, her arm still around Emily. "Opening your home, sharing your clothes." She fingered the worn flannel pajamas Emily still wore. "We'll have everything cleaned and returned, of course. Keep them," Sarah said quickly. As a reminder, Emily's smile could have lit up the whole snow-covered valley. "Can we, Mom? And maybe Sarah could come visit sometime. Their house is amazing. Mr. Winters built everything himself. He's a carpenter, but not just regular carpenter. He's an artist. You should see the shelves he made, and the porch railings. And Emily," James interrupted gently, "let's get you home and warmed up first. Then we can discuss visits." He turned back to Jack. "The offer stands. Dinner at your convenience. We'd like to thank you properly." Jack felt the weight of the business card in his hand, saw the way Sarah and Emily were already making plans in whispered voices, noticed how Catherine kept glancing at their house with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That's very kind," he said carefully. "But really, anyone would have—" "Jack," Catherine's voice was soft but firm, "accept the dinner invitation. Please, some things are meant to be." There was something in her tone, something in the way she looked at Sarah, that made Jack's breath catch. But before he could respond, the helicopter pilot appeared with news about a narrow weather window for takeoff. The goodbyes were quick, fierce hugs between the girls, polite handshakes among the adults, promises to call once phones were working. Again, Jack stood with Sarah on the porch, watching the helicopter lift off into the brightening sky, taking Emily back to her world of private aircraft and unlimited resources. The business card felt heavy in his pocket, like a key to a door. He wasn't sure he wanted to open. 2 days later, Jack found himself standing before his closet, realizing he owned nothing appropriate for dinner at the Hamilton estate. The business card sat on his dresser, its golden letters catching the afternoon light. Hamilton House, 7 p.m. Dad? Sarah appeared in his doorway, already dressed in her Christmas dress from last year, thankfully still fitting. Are you going to wear your interview suit? The interview suit. A decade old, purchased for the job that would have taken them out of Vermont, the one Rachel had urged him to take before she got sick. He'd kept it, though he couldn't say why. Looks like I'll have to, he said, pulling out the garment bag. How are you feeling about tonight? Sarah flopped onto his bed, her dress poofing around her. Emily texted me pictures of their house. Dad, they have a library, like a real one, with ladders on rails and everything. Jack was still getting used to the idea of Emily's spare phone, given to Sarah yesterday by courier, along with an invitation for nightly video calls. The Hamiltons moved fast when they wanted something. A knock at the front door startled them both. That's weird, Sarah said, checking her phone. We're not supposed to leave for another hour. Jack headed downstairs, straightening his work shirt automatically. Through the front window, he saw an unfamiliar luxury car in the driveway, its black paint gleaming like a mirror. Catherine Hamilton stood on his porch, elegant as ever in a casual outfit that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage. I hope you don't mind me dropping by early, she said when he opened the door. I wanted to speak with you privately, before dinner. Something in her tone made Jack's spine straighten. Of course, come in. She entered their home with the same careful attention she'd shown 2 days ago, her eyes lingering on the handcrafted details. From upstairs came the sound of Sarah's voice, presumably updating Emily about the unexpected visit. You have a beautiful home, Catherine said, but she wasn't looking at the house anymore. She'd removed something from her purse, a small leather case that looked old and well cared for, and a remarkable daughter. Thank you, Jack said cautiously. Sarah's my whole world. Catherine's fingers traced the leather case. She looked so much like her mother. Before Jack could respond to this unexpected observation, she continued, which is why I recognized her immediately. She's the image of Rachel at that age. The world seemed to tilt beneath Jack's feet. You knew Rachel? Catherine opened the case, revealing an antique pocket watch, its gold surface dulled with age but still beautiful. Rachel was my best friend in college. We were inseparable for 4 years at Smith, until I made choices that separated us. Jack sank into his armchair, mind reeling. Rachel had rarely spoken about college, except to say she'd had a friend who'd chosen a different path. She wrote to me when you got married, Catherine continued, her voice soft with memory. And when Sarah was born, I never wrote back. My family, they had expectations. I followed the path they'd laid out, married who they chose. Rachel chose love. She held out the pocket watch. This belonged to my grandfather. He gave it to me the day I graduated, told me to give it to someone who understood the true value of time. I always meant to give it to Rachel, but I was too much of a coward to reach out. Jack took the watch carefully. It was exquisite craftsmanship, the kind of piece that belonged in a museum. Why are you telling me this now? Because when I saw Sarah, when I saw this house you've built with your own hands, I realized Rachel was right all along, about what matters, about choosing love. Catherine's composure cracked slightly. My marriage to James ended last year. It was amicable, but it made me think about all the choices I've made. When Emily told me about your craftsmanship, about this home full of love and handmade beauty, it was like Rachel was sending me a message. From upstairs, Sarah's laugh drifted down, bright, uncomplicated, so much like her mother's. I'd like to tell Sarah about her mother's college days, Catherine said, if you'll allow it. And I'd like to show you something at dinner tonight, something that might help both our families. The pocket watch felt warm in Jack's hand, like it had been waiting all these years to find its way here. Through the window, he could see Sarah now sitting on the porch swing he'd built, still talking animatedly on her phone to Emily. "Rachel would have loved knowing they found each other," he said quietly. "Like she found you once." Catherine's smile was bittersweet. "She found both of us, I think, and maybe she's still helping us find our way." Hamilton House exceeded even Sarah's wide-eyed descriptions. The circular driveway alone was bigger than Jack's entire property, and the mansion loomed against the evening sky like something from a period drama. Stone lions guarded the entrance, their snow-covered manes gleaming in the landscape lighting. "It's like a castle," Sarah whispered as they followed the butler, an actual butler, through corridors lined with oil paintings and antique furniture that made Jack's palms itch with professional appreciation. The library, when they reached it, drew an audible gasp from both Winters. 2 stories of floor-to-ceiling shelves, gleaming mahogany and brass, with the promised rolling ladders. Emily waited by a massive fireplace, practically bouncing with excitement. "Sarah, come see my favorite reading spot." As the girls disappeared into the stacks, Catherine appeared at Jack's elbow. "The newspaper archives are over here," she said quietly. "I found something you should see." She led him to a reading table where a leather-bound volume lay open. "James's family has kept every significant newspaper article about the Hamiltons for generations. But I found this while looking through the local papers from Rachel's college years." The yellowed clipping showed a younger Rachel beaming at the camera. The headline read, "Local craftsman's daughter wins prestigious architecture scholarship." Jack's throat tightened. Rachel had never mentioned a scholarship. "She turned it down," Catherine said, watching his face. "The program was in Boston. She chose to stay in Vermont instead, to marry you." "I never knew." Jack traced Rachel's smile in the photograph. "She said Boston firms weren't hiring. She didn't want you to know. Said you'd insist she take it, that you'd try to follow her there and give up your own dreams of starting a workshop here." Catherine's voice was gentle. She knew how much Vermont meant to you, how much you wanted to build something of your own. Before Jack could process this, James Hamilton's voice rang out from the doorway. "Ah, Catherine's showing you the archives. Fascinating reading, our family history." But James wasn't looking at the newspapers. He was studying the library's woodwork with an expert's eye. "Emily tells me you're responsible for some remarkable carpentry. I'd love your professional opinion on these shelves. They're original to the house, installed by a master craftsman in 1892. Jack welcomed the shift to familiar territory, moving closer to examine the joinery. "Beautiful work. This kind of detailed scrolling is almost a lost art now. Exactly why we're having such trouble finding someone qualified to restore the East Wing." James's casual tone didn't quite hide his interest. "The original plans called for matching woodwork throughout, but the war interrupted construction. We've never found anyone who could properly match the existing work." Catherine and James exchanged a look that seemed weighted with meaning. From deeper in the library came the sound of girls' laughter, echoing off the high ceiling. "The original plans," Catherine said carefully, "were drawn by the same architect who designed the public library in Burlington, the one Rachel used to sketch during our study breaks." Jack's mind was spinning. Rachel's abandoned scholarship, the Hamiltons' mysterious interest, this massive house with its unfinished wings. Sarah and Emily reappeared, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Dad, Emily's going to teach me chess. They have a glass set that's over 100 years old." "Speaking of old things," James said smoothly, "I believe dinner is ready. We can discuss restoration projects later." As they followed their host to the dining room, Jack noticed Catherine lingering by the newspaper archive, her fingers resting on Rachel's smiling photograph. The pocket watch felt heavy in his suit jacket, like it was trying to tell him something about time and choices and second chances. The dining room windows offered a view of the East Wing, graceful stonework, rising 3 stories, waiting for someone to complete a vision started over a century ago. In the snowy twilight, he could almost see Rachel sketching it, her dreams reaching forward through time to this strange evening. Sarah slipped her hand into his, anchoring him in the present. "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah, sweetheart." He squeezed her hand, grateful for her steady presence. "Just thinking about how your mom would have loved this library." "She would have drawn it," Sarah said with certainty, "like she drew all the pretty buildings in her old notebooks." Jack stopped mid-step, a memory surfacing. Those notebooks were still in the attic, packed away with Rachel's other college things, and suddenly he knew, with absolute clarity, that they contained more than just sketches. Dinner at Hamilton House felt like a scene from a movie Jack had never meant to be in. Crystal glasses caught the light from a chandelier that probably cost more than his truck. Multiple courses appeared and disappeared with choreographed precision, each served on china so fine it was nearly transparent. Sarah handled it all with surprising grace, following Emily's subtle cues about which fork to use. The girls' chatter about chess strategies and library adventures filled any awkward silences, creating a bubble of normalcy in the midst of all this luxury. It wasn't until dessert, some French creation involving chocolate and gold leaf, that James Hamilton placed a leather portfolio beside his coffee cup. "Jack," he began, his tone carefully neutral, "what do you know about historical restoration?" "It depends on the project," Jack answered honestly. "I've done some period-accurate repairs on the town hall, helped restore the covered bridge after the flood. It's detailed work, requires research and the right materials." "And the right vision," Catherine added softly. She'd been quiet through dinner, watching Sarah with that same strange mix of joy and sadness. James opened the portfolio, removing a thick document bound in blue leather. "This is the original contract for Hamilton House, dated 1892. The architect specified that all woodwork must be completed by master craftsmen using old-world techniques. The East Wing was meant to house the family's art collection." He passed the contract to Jack, who couldn't help admiring the hand-drawn architectural details in the margins. They reminded him of Rachel's sketches, the same precise lines, the same attention to small decorative elements. "We've had 6 different contractors try to restore the East Wing over the years," James continued. "None could match the quality of the original work. But Emily showed me pictures of your carpentry, which is exactly what we've been looking for," Catherine finished. "The same dedication to craft, the same artistic sensibility." Jack looked up from the contract. "You want me to restore the East Wing?" "We want to hire you as our master craftsman in residence," James corrected. "Full-time, with a workshop on the grounds. The East Wing would be your first project, but there are others waiting. These old houses always need something." The document's pages felt heavy with possibility. Jack's mind raced with calculations. Steady work, real income, maybe enough to finally get ahead. "There's more," Catherine said, reaching for a second document in the portfolio. "We'd like to establish a trust for Sarah's education." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "That's not necessary. It's what Rachel would have wanted," Catherine interrupted. "She gave up her scholarship to stay in Vermont. Let us give Sarah the opportunities her mother dreamed of." Sarah and Emily had gone quiet, sensing the weight of the adult conversation. Jack could feel his daughter's eyes on him, curious but not worried. She trusted him to make the right choice. "It's a generous offer," he said carefully. "But why now? Why us?" James and Catherine exchanged looks. "Emily hasn't stopped talking about your house since the storm," James said. "About the craftsmanship, the warmth, the feeling of home. Our house, it's beautiful, but it's never felt quite finished. Like it's been waiting for the right hands to complete it, and the right hearts to fill it," Catherine added. She pulled out an old photograph, herself and Rachel in college, arms around each other, laughing at something long forgotten. "Some connections are meant to last across generations." Jack studied the contracts, the photo, the hopeful faces around the table. He thought of Rachel's notebooks in the attic, probably filled with drawings of this very house, of Sarah's future, bright with possibility, of his own dreams of creating beauty from raw wood. "I'd need to see the work site," he said finally. "Review the original plans, make sure I can match the existing craftsmanship." James broke into a genuine smile. "Of course, we can tour the East Wing after dinner, and I'll need my own tools, my own workspace." "Already planned for," Catherine assured him. "The old carriage house is perfect for a workshop." "And we can visit all the time?" Emily asked, breaking her silence. "Sarah can see the library whenever she wants." The adults laughed, breaking the tension. Jack looked at his daughter, saw Rachel's determination shining in her eyes. "What do you think, sweetheart?" he asked. "Ready for some changes?" Sarah's smile was all the answer he needed. "Mom would love it, Dad. She always said your work belonged in a museum." Jack fingered the pocket watch in his jacket, a piece of the past pointing toward the future. Sometimes, he realized, the most valuable things we build aren't made of wood at all. The East Wing of Hamilton House felt like stepping into a time capsule. Beneath dust sheets, bare wooden beams reached toward high ceilings, waiting for the craftsman's touch they'd been denied a century ago. Jack's footsteps echoed on the unfinished floors as he followed James through the space, his mind already cataloguing the work needed, seeing the possibilities. "The original plans are in here," James said, leading them to a small study off the main corridor. Unlike the unfinished wing, this room was fully restored, its walls lined with architectural drawings and family photographs. Catherine was already there, holding a yellowed envelope. Her hands trembled slightly. "I found this while looking for the blueprints. It's from my grandmother to Rachel." Jack took the envelope carefully. The date showed it had been written just months before Rachel's death, but she'd never mentioned it. "Read it," Catherine urged softly. "Please." The letter was written in an elegant hand, the ink faded but still clear. "My dearest Rachel, by the time you receive this, I may already be gone. The doctors say it won't be long now, but there are things you must know, things I should have told you years ago, when you were just a bright-eyed architecture student sketching our old house. Catherine doesn't know I've maintained our correspondence. All these years, she chose the path her parents demanded, as I once did. But you, dear girl, you chose love. You chose to build something real with your craftsmen, to create beauty with your own hands, rather than merely preserve it. The East Wing remains unfinished, as it has since my father's time. The family always said it was because of the war. But the truth is simpler. We lost the heart for it. Money can build walls, but it takes love to make them sing. Your sketches from college still hang in my private study. I've watched Catherine look at them sometimes, touching the paper like she could feel the life in your designs. She mentions your daughter occasionally. Sarah, isn't it? The name we both loved, though I gave in to family pressure and named my own daughter Elizabeth instead. There is a trust fund established by my father for the architect who would finally complete Hamilton House. It's been waiting all these years, gathering dust like the East Wing itself. I'm arranging for it to pass to Sarah, though she doesn't yet know it. Consider it my apology for all the dreams our family's pride has interrupted. Tell your Jack to look closely at the original woodwork. My father always said the craftsman left a message there, carved so subtly only another true artist would find it. Perhaps he's meant to be the one to find it, to finish what was started so long ago. With love and regret, Margaret Hamilton. Jack looked up from the letter to find Catherine wiping tears from her eyes. "I never knew," she whispered, "about the letters. The trust, any of it. Rachel never mentioned them," Jack said. "She protected everyone's privacy, even at the end." James was examining one of Rachel's old sketches on the wall, a detail of the East Wing's proposed woodwork that could have been drawn yesterday. "The craftsmanship you showed in your home, the designs Rachel drew, it's like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together." Jack moved to the nearest wooden panel, running his fingers along the intricate carving. There, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it, was a tiny signature worked into the design, not just a name, but a message. For those who build with love. Sarah has her mother's eye for design, Catherine said quietly, and your hands for crafting. Maybe that's why grandmother wanted the trust to go to her. Through the windows, they could see Sarah and Emily in the snow-covered garden, teaching each other to make snow angels. Their laughter drifted up, echoing in the unfinished space like a promise. Rachel used to say that nothing built without love could ever truly last, Jack said, his hand still resting on the carved message. I think she knew somehow that all of this would find its way home. Outside, the setting sun painted the snow in shades of gold, making everything old look new again. In the days that followed, Jack found himself spending every spare moment in the Hamilton House library, poring over Rachel's old sketches and the original architectural plans. Each page revealed something new, details she'd noticed that others had missed, improvements subtly suggested in her precise notations. I brought you some coffee, Catherine said, appearing at his elbow one afternoon, though it's probably cold by now. You've been staring at that same page for 20 minutes. Jack smiled apologetically, accepting the cup. Look at this. He pointed to a small detail in Rachel's sketches. She figured out how to improve the original design while keeping its character. The way she adjusted the angle of these joints, it would make the whole structure stronger without changing its appearance. Catherine leaned closer, studying the careful annotations. She always could see things others missed. Even in college, she'd noticed the tiniest details in buildings everyone else just walked past. A burst of laughter from the garden drew their attention. Sarah and Emily were attempting to build a snow fort, supervised by James, who appeared to be offering architectural advice with mock seriousness. Sarah's exactly the same, Jack said softly. She can spot a loose joint or an uneven cut before I even finish a piece. She gets that from both of you. Catherine pulled out a rolled tube of papers from behind her back, which is why I wanted to show you these. The blueprints were obviously old, but carefully preserved. As Jack unrolled them, his breath caught. They showed a conservatory, a magnificent glass and wood structure that would connect the east wing to the gardens. It was in the original plans, Catherine explained, but was considered too ambitious even before the war interrupted construction. The engineering challenges alone are solved right here, Jack finished, pointing to Rachel's familiar handwriting. In the margins of the blueprint, she'd made these annotations recently. The ink was far less faded than the original drawings. She must have found these plans during her research. Look, she figured out how to redistribute the weight load, using modern materials while keeping the historical aesthetics. Catherine's eyes shone with unshed tears. She never stopped dreaming about this place, did she? Even after choosing a different path, Jack completed quietly. No, she never stopped dreaming. Just found new ways to build beauty. He studied the conservatory plans with growing excitement. The structure would be challenging, a perfect blend of traditional craftsmanship and modern engineering. The wood and glass design would require every skill he possessed, plus some he'd need to master. We'd need to update some of the materials, he said, already making mental calculations. Modern glass has different properties, and some of these wood species are protected now, but the basic design, it's brilliant. The way it brings the outside in, how it would light up the East Wing gallery. Then it's yours, Catherine said simply, if you want it. After the main restoration is complete, of course. Jack looked up sharply. This would be a massive undertaking. The cost alone is already covered by the trust Margaret set up. Catherine smiled. She didn't just leave money for Sarah's education. There's a separate fund specifically for completing the house as it was meant to be, including this. Outside, the snow fort was taking shape under Sarah's direction. She had her mother's way of seeing the final form in raw materials, of guiding others to share her vision. There's something else, Catherine said, pulling a smaller roll of paper from the tube. "We found these with Rachel's college things, her designs for your house, all the details you never got to finish." Jack unrolled the sketches with trembling hands. There they were, all the dreams they'd shared late at night. The carved medallions for the stair risers, the built-in bookcase for Sarah's room, the garden arch for Rachel's morning glories. Each one carefully drawn, measurements noted, wood types specified. "She knew you'd find these eventually," Catherine said. Gently, "knew you'd finish them when the time was right." Through the library windows, Jack could see the east wing waiting to be reborn. Beyond it, the space where the conservatory would rise, bridging past and present, dreams and reality. And in the garden, his daughter was building something new, from the raw material of winter. "Yes," he said finally, "I'll build it, all of it." The blueprints seemed to glow in the afternoon light, filled with possibilities he'd thought were lost forever. Rachel had always said that love was the best foundation. Now he understood it was also the finest building material. The scent of cinnamon and chocolate drifted through the Hamilton House kitchen, so familiar it made Jack's chest ache. He stood in the doorway, watching Catherine study a worn recipe card with intense concentration. "A pinch of cayenne," she muttered, reaching for the spice rack. Rachel always said that was the secret. The kitchen was a professional chef's dream, all gleaming stainless steel and marble countertops. But tonight it was cluttered with measuring cups and scattered cocoa powder, looking more lived in than Jack suspected it had in years. "Need any help?" he offered, stepping inside. Catherine jumped slightly, then laughed. "I'm trying to recreate Rachel's hot chocolate. Emily hasn't stopped talking about it since that night during the storm, but I keep getting something wrong." She held up the recipe card, faded blue ink in Rachel's distinctive handwriting, spotted with old cocoa stains. Jack recognized it from their own kitchen, though he hadn't seen it since. "Where did you find that?" "In my old college journal. Rachel wrote it down during one of our study sessions. She used to make it for the whole dorm during finals week." Catherine stirred the simmering pot. The whole floor would smell like chocolate and warmth. From somewhere above came the sound of running feet and laughter. Sarah and Emily had been exploring the attic, discovering generations of Hamilton family treasures. "Dad!" Sarah's voice echoed down the back stairs. "Emily found an old dollhouse that looks just like the one in your workshop." The girls burst into the kitchen, cheeks flushed with excitement. Emily carried a delicate Victorian dollhouse miniature, perfectly scaled and intricately detailed. "Look at the tiny woodwork," Sarah said, pointing to the diminutive porch rails. "It's like your style, Dad." Jack examined the dollhouse with professional appreciation. These were handcrafted, probably by the same craftsman who did the original house trim. "Can we restore it?" Emily asked eagerly. "Like you're doing with the East Wing?" "Please," Sarah added. "We could work on it together." Catherine was watching them over the steaming pot, her eyes soft. "The dollhouse was my grandmother's. I used to imagine living in it when I was their age. Now we can all live in the big version," Emily said, then blushed. "I mean, when you're working here, Mr. Winters." An awkward silence fell. They hadn't yet discussed the details of Jack's employment, how much time he'd spend at Hamilton House, how this would change all their lives. Catherine broke the tension by pouring hot chocolate into 4 mugs. "Let's see if I finally got the recipe right." They gathered around the kitchen island, the dollhouse carefully placed in the center. Steam rose from the mugs, carrying that familiar, spicy, sweet aroma. Sarah took a sip, and her eyes widened. "It tastes just like Mom's." Catherine's hands trembled slightly on her mug. "Really?" "The cayenne," Jack said, savoring the rich chocolate and the hint of heat. That was always her signature touch. Sweet and spicy, just like her. She said it was like life, Catherine remembered. You need both elements to make it interesting. Emily was examining the dollhouse again. "Look, it even has tiny books in the library, and the porch swing moves." "Dad could make furniture for it," Sarah suggested. "Oh, while he's working on the big house." "A project within a project," Catherine mused. Something the girls could help with. Jack studied the miniature house, seeing the craftsmanship that had gone into every detail. It would be good practice for the restoration work, smaller scale, same techniques. Can we start today? The girls asked in unison, then giggled. First, hot chocolate, Catherine said firmly. Then we'll set up a proper workspace. They sat together in the warm kitchen, sipping Rachel's recipe and planning miniature renovations. The dollhouse stood between them like a model of their future. Something old made new again, something broken made whole. Mom would love this, Sarah said quietly, leaning against Jack's side. All of us together making things beautiful again. Catherine reached across the island and squeezed Sarah's hand. No one mentioned the tears in her eyes or how they matched the ones Jack was trying to hide. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and gentle this time. Inside, the scent of chocolate and cinnamon wrapped around them like a familiar embrace, building invisible bridges between past and present, between what was lost and what could still be found. The Hamilton House library felt different at night. Moonlight filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows between the bookshelves. Jack sat in one of the leather armchairs, staring at the trust fund document James had just handed him. There's been a complication, James said, his usual confidence wavering slightly. My former mother-in-law's lawyers have raised some concerns. Catherine paced near the fireplace, her nervous energy filling the quiet room. Elizabeth, my sister, she's contesting Mother's will, including Margaret's trust fund arrangements. Jack looked up from the legal papers, his stomach tightening. I thought this was all settled. It should have been. James ran a hand through his silver hair. But Elizabeth claims Margaret wasn't of sound mind when she made these arrangements. She's particularly focused on the portion designated for Sarah. The amount on the paper made Jack's head spin. He'd known the trust was substantial, but seeing the actual figure, it's too much anyway. We couldn't accept. It's not about the money, Catherine interrupted. It's about Margaret's wishes, about keeping promises. Heavy footsteps in the hallway announced the arrival of Charles Hamilton, James's younger brother and the family's lawyer. His expression was grave as he joined them. Elizabeth's lawyers are pushing hard, he reported. They're arguing that Margaret's correspondence with Rachel shows she was being unduly influenced. Influenced, Catherine's voice cracked. Rachel was the only one who ever told her the truth, the only one who saw her as more than a Hamilton bank account. Jack studied the trust document more carefully. These provisions, they're not just about money, are they? Charles shook his head. Margaret tied everything together. The trust for Sarah, the restoration funding, the requirements for maintaining the house's artistic integrity. Remove one piece, and it all falls apart, James finished. The East Wing would remain unfinished. The conservatory plans would never be realized. Rachel's designs, Catherine whispered. All of it lost again. Jack thought of Sarah and Emily upstairs, working on their dollhouse renovation, planning their shared future with childish certainty. What do we do? Charles spread more papers. On the desk. We fight. Margaret left extensive documentation, letters, journals, her conversations with Rachel. She knew this might happen. Elizabeth never understood, Catherine said bitterly. She thought Mother was losing her mind when she started talking about preserving the house's soul instead of just its market value. The craftsmanship, Jack murmured, remembering the hidden message in the woodwork. That's what Margaret saw in Rachel's designs. Not just beauty, but understanding. James nodded slowly. Which is why she wanted you here, Jack. Not just your skills, but your connection to Rachel's vision. A soft gasp from the doorway made them all turn. Sarah stood there in her pajamas, Emily right behind her. Their faces showed they'd heard enough to understand. Is someone trying to stop Dad's work? Emily demanded. They can't. The house needs him. Sarah moved to Jack's side, her young face set with Rachel's determination. Mum's drawings. They're part of the house now, aren't they? They belong here. Catherine wiped tears from her eyes. Yes, they do. Just like you belong here, Sarah. Margaret knew that. Charles gathered the papers, his expression thoughtful. Maybe that's our answer. Not just legal arguments, but showing how all these pieces fit together. The craftsmanship, the family connections, Rachel's designs, the past and future meeting, James said. Not just preserving history, but bringing it alive again. Jack pulled Sarah close, feeling the weight of Rachel's dreams and Margaret's trust. "What do you need from me?" "Your story," Charles said simply. "Your work. Show them what Margaret saw. That true craftsmanship is about more than skill. It's about heart." Outside, clouds crossed the moon, changing the shadows in the library. Jack thought of Rachel sketching this room, seeing past its current elegance to what it could become. Of Margaret recognizing that same vision years later. "We'll need to document everything," Charles continued. "Your restoration work, Rachel's designs, the girls' dollhouse project." "The dollhouse!" Emily exclaimed. "It's like a model of what the whole house could be." Sarah squeezed Jack's hand. "We're not giving up, are we, Dad?" "No, sweetheart." He met Catherine's eyes across the room, saw his own determination reflected there. Some things are worth fighting for. The trust fund document lay on the desk, its legal language attempting to quantify something that couldn't be measured in dollars. The value of dreams, of craftsmanship, of connections that spanned generations. Rachel had chosen love over ambition once. Now it was their turn to prove that sometimes love was the most ambitious choice of all. Jack sat on the edge of his bed, turning Rachel's wedding ring in his hands. The morning sun caught the simple gold band, warming it like a living thing. He'd kept it on his dresser these past 3 years, a daily reminder of promises made and kept. "Dad?" Sarah's soft knock preceded her entrance. "Catherine's here. She brought breakfast." He quickly set the ring back in its place, but not before Sarah saw it. She crossed the room and sat beside him, her shoulder touching his. "Mom would want you to be happy," she said quietly. "She told me that, you know." Near the end, Jack's breath caught. "She did. She made me promise to take care of you." Sarah smiled. "So like her mother, it hurt. But she also made me promise to let you take care of yourself." Downstairs, they could hear Catherine moving around their kitchen, the familiar sounds of coffee brewing and plates being set out. She'd been spending more mornings here lately, bringing fresh pastries and construction updates that somehow